I am Devi Ward Erickson, and I am the founder of the Institute of Authentic Tantra Education here in beautiful British Columbia. And we are the first and only government accredited school for Tantric holistic healing in the world, which is pretty cool. I started the organization in 2017. That's when the Institute was founded. And before that, I worked more in personal coaching. So since 2009, I have been leading women, men, and couples through lineage-based tantric practices to heal and to connect and to cultivate more intimacy and pleasure.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And we would love to start with a definition of what Tantra is for people who might not know.
Yeah.
AKA Cass and Ed.
So Tantra is an ancient spiritual science that was developed and cultivated in India over 5,000 years ago. And there are many different styles of Tantra, many different traditions, lineages of practice. And so all Tantra is not the same. That's a misconception that everyone who's practicing Tantra is practicing the same thing. We're not, I can guarantee you. So it's very specific to the tradition that people practice it. Mm-hmm. What most people think of about Tantra in the West is what we refer to as Neo-Tantra, which is an adaptation of this ancient science, usually from the Hindu tradition. And the emphasis in Neo-Tantra is more on the sexuality, more on like intimate couple practices. So there's more of an emphasis on the sexuality versus the spirituality, which isn't necessarily a bad thing given Western society. But if you take the spirituality out of Tantra, it's not Tantra anymore. It is a spiritual science. So it's really about weaving all aspects of our humanity, the sexual, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical.
Wow, that sounds like a big challenge. Honestly, what is the purpose of Tantra? What are we using it for?
In our tradition, it's to heal and to become more present and more anchored in bliss and equanimity, openness, clarity, and joy, to be a healthier, happier human being. That ultimately is the end goal of Tantra. If your Tantra practice is not creating more pleasure and joy, then it's not the right practice for you. So it's really about living a life that's fully expressed, fully grounded, fully whole and healthy. There's a lot of emphasis in the work that I do on healing trauma, because we are trauma-informed, we practice Tantra with a trauma-informed lens. And so trauma is often the thing that blocks us from joy and bliss and pleasure. So a lot of the way we use our Tantric methods like breathing, meditation, visualization, movement practices, all of that is really with the understanding that we already are happy, healthy, whole human beings. We just have stuff in the way. So it's about clearing what we call blocks to bliss so that we can experience more of our ultimate potential.
That's really beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I love that. I love a focus on joy. And you started to give some examples like meditation, breathing, all of that. Can you give a couple more like really practical, like daily examples of what Tantra can look like?
Yeah. So I'll share that what we teach is based on the 4 pillars of healing. So we have practices that are meditation practices, movement practices, connection practices, and pleasure practices. So what this could look like is when you first wake up in the morning, putting one hand over your heart center and one hand on your belly, and just breathing into your body to connect with your body. Oftentimes people wake up in their heads, their thoughts are going a mile a minute, right? You have all the blah, 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 what you got to do today. So taking a few moments to connect to your body and connect with your breath can help quiet the mind and regulate your nervous system, so that when you get out of bed, you're coming from a place of anchor and peace, as opposed to the frantic frenzy that's usually happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds like something I need. Yeah.
Right?
You explain my mornings. Yeah,
absolutely. Could you maybe give some examples of how, like you said, it's not just sex, but how does it involve sex, and in what ways, is Tantra used in the bedroom?
Yeah, so I would say one of the first points is getting present. So just like we wake up in the morning sometimes and that mind won't shut off, have you ever been in a sexual situation where your mind won't shut up? Yeah, that was me last night, right? I can't feel anything because I'm in my head. So Tantra methods for when you recognize that, to help you reconnect with your body and be present. And so something as simple as noticing, oh, I'm not present right now, I'm completely in my thoughts, and then focusing on your breath. So your breath is your gateway to the present moment. So just bringing your attention back to your breath to reconnect with the present moment, and then communicating with your partner. So that's another aspect of Tantra, is how do we talk to each other? And how do we talk to each other about our pleasure, particularly in the bedroom, because nobody taught us how to do that. Right? Nobody said, okay, when you want, them to go lighter, then you just say, hey, could you go lighter? When you want it faster, or, a different way, you just communicate. No, we're actually like, just kind of, I consider like fumbling around in the dark most of the time having sex, and nobody's talking, right?
Exactly.
We're moaning, we're screaming, we're arching our back, but nobody's saying, harder, please, or softer, please, or a little to the left, please, right? So a critical aspect of Tantra, particularly about sexuality, is how do we communicate? How do I authentically communicate to you about my pleasure while we're having the pleasure in a way that you can hear and receive? Because the more you know about what's working for me, the better you can do your job of giving me pleasure. And the more I know about what's working for you, the better I can do my job in giving you pleasure. So once I've reconnected with myself using the previous scenario, the next step would be to communicate to my partner, hey, I'm feeling a little disconnected, or I'm having trouble staying present. Could you make eye contact with me and breathe with me to help me ground into this moment? And eye contact is another big part of Tantra, eye gazing. It's kind of like foo-foo, people talk about it, but it actually has a really measurable physiological effect. When we make prolonged eye contact as human beings, it's bonding. Our bodies start producing oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. Also, it signals the ventral vagal pathway that it's safe to connect. So eye gazing and eye connection can be a way of regulating the nervous system and attuning to your partner emotionally.
Yeah, that just it sounds so logical, but I feel like the word Tantra just like scares a lot of people off or makes it seem like an inaccessible practice, but it really can be so easy for people to practice Tantra then.
Exactly. It's very practical. That's the thing that I love about this specific tradition. It's, if nothing else, is practical. And my lama, my teacher, often says, if it doesn't work, don't use it. Like, don't keep doing it if it doesn't work. Some people in the field of sacred sexuality have removed the word Tantra because of exactly that, because it can be triggering or stimulating. And so in that realm, it's just like mindful connection, mindful sex. It's just really about being present and connected. And Tantra has the spirituality attached to it. And so that could be a turnoff for some people who aren't, spiritually oriented. But ultimately, all we're talking about is the nervous system. Like, I often say that in terms of sexuality specifically, Tantra is all about priming the nervous system. It's all about understanding how the autonomic nervous system works and working with it to facilitate connection and pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've definitely like strayed away from exploring the Tantra subject on the podcast because we're like, I don't really know if people would be into that. It seems like something that's like really high up there. You have to be really spiritual, which you're saying it does have those aspects. How are you learning and educating yourself about the spiritual aspect? Is that reading? Is that classes? Is that like tapping into your own spirituality? Like, how does that part work?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. So again, depending on your lineage of Tantra, it's going to have different curriculum, we'll say, associated with it. So in our particular tradition, there's an emphasis on sitting meditation. So there's very specific meditation practices that we do. It's Tibetan 5-element Tantra, and I have all kinds of free videos explaining what that is for people who resonate with it. And we work with your chakras and energy body and all that fun stuff, right? So that is one way of accessing Tantra. Another way is, I'm sorry, I actually forgot your question.
Okay, just learning about the spirituality aspect within Tantra. Yeah.
So learning about the spirituality. So for us, we learn through our practice, but then of course there's books to read. So there's a book called Healing with Form, Energy, and Light, which talks about the Tibetan 5-element tradition. So you can read more about it. I've created tons of videos so people can learn more about this tradition. So there's a variety of resources that people can use to learn more about the spiritual aspects, but really honestly, it's about what arises, your own internal insights that arise as a result of your practice. So you mentioned journaling and self-connecting. That's a huge component because it's about the treasure in your own heart and all these little gems that arise as a result from quieting the mind and getting present with ourselves. There's magic in that moment. And that's the juice of Tantra.
Sounds like it.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Okay, so how we found you and your work was actually through an article where you talked about Tantra in regards to Bridgerton. So it is no secret that we are big fans.
I literally
of Bridgerton.
screamed when she told me that.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? I'm so excited.
Because I think, you know, in a similar vein to Tantra, that passion that we see in like season 2 specifically also feels kind of inaccessible. It's like, oh,
Right.
that must just be like, you find it or you don't, you have it or you don't. So in that article, you talked about so many ways in which like Tantra can be used to kind of create similar like passion. So we would love to dive
more
into
than
that.
anything in the world. We can talk about our favorite sex scenes. We can talk about it all.
Yeah, Bridgerton, it was the way they demonstrate that passion and that electricity is really beautiful. And I do want to say that Tantra is not a replacement for chemistry. If there is no chemistry to begin with, Tantra is not going to fix that, right? So you do have to have a base of chemistry. I practiced Tantra with no chemistry, right? But I practiced like my husband is like hot.
That's a fair warning to lay out there in the beginning, and I appreciate that. My mind would have been like, I can do this with anyone.
I can pick anyone. You.
Yeah.
You might have a good time, but you do need, there does need to be that chemistry present to work with, and that chemistry we refer to as yogic energy. So it means that both of you have compatible yogic energy and their sparks are flying, right? And then you build upon that. So you know how for many people you may have chemistry and it dwindles, it goes away.
Yep.
Right? That's pretty common, the honeymoon phase, and then it goes away, and then you're like, nah. Right?
Chemistry just faded a long time ago between she and I.
That's a lie. It's still
It
fiery.
doesn't look like it. I can say, it does not look like your chemistry has faded at
Thank
all.
you.
That's not what I'm getting over here. I'm getting electricity.
I told you we had sexual chemistry. I told you there was sexual tension between us.
We'll talk about it later. We'll need to talk about that with Jürgen, but we'll figure it
I can
out.
teach you some Tantra to build on that if you want.
Perfect.
Anyway,
What I was talking about in the Bridgerton article is you know, if this couple, I would say that they would be a great couple to work with in terms of Tantra, so that their initial connection wasn't just a flash in the pan, to help them cultivate longevity, so that relationship does stay sparkly, it does stay ever new, it does stay rich, and it doesn't get dull and boring. That doesn't mean that the honeymoon phase doesn't fade. It just it fades into something else. It turns into something else. And so it doesn't lessen in terms of that desire or attraction. It just changes form and it deepens and it becomes even more rich and full, and like trust evolves and the depth of intimacy. Like you can go places in a committed partnership that you can't go with a one night stand or even just like a 6-month relationship. So Tantra gives us these tools to continue cultivating and deepening that intimate connection with our partner so that it lasts a lifetime.
okay. Can we talk about what we saw in Bridgerton that is reflecting this like passion that we could get from Tantra? Like, what are we seeing that makes it so electric and like, oh, I want it type of vibe?
Yeah.
See how much I like the show.
But for me, it was the connection. They gave really beautiful examples. So I think in the article we talked about, you know, the bee sting thing, and he's all like, freaking out. And she's like, but my Lord, I'm unharmed, you know? And she did a tantric thing, which she put one of her hands on his heart, and to help soothe and calm him. So that's a kind of a trauma-informed thing we do with somatic anchoring, but also that connection to the heart center, right? So Bridgerton wasn't just about sex, it was sex and love. That's why we're so turned on by it. If we just want sex, we can watch Pornhub, right? But it was the sexual tension, the electricity mixed with the love that was so electric. And so I think enthralling for us to watch. And so that again is the foundation of Tantra. It's not just about the fucking. It's not just about penis and vagina and the sex tricks. It's about how to weave and unite the heart, the genitals, and the mind and the brain. And so I thought that was really beautifully displayed through Bridgerton in all these little kind of like, what are they called? Vignette kind of scenes where they really emphasize that connection with love, presence, and compassion. I also saw that in that bee sting moment. She had such compassion for him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about the hand to heart, because there's another point at which he puts his hand on her heart while he's going down on her. So can you talk
Yes.
a little bit more about like, what does that do when you put your hand on somebody's heart? Like physiologically, emotionally, spiritually, all of it.
I want to ask you, have you had that experience of putting your hand on someone's heart or someone doing that to you?
I have not, like, not specifically on my heart, like grabbing my boob. Yeah, but it was not in like a heart way.
Right.
You know, not that it was in a bad way, but it just,
No, but
it wasn't like intentionally, like I'm putting my hand to
Yeah.
connect with your heart.
I've never experienced it either. Nor I. And I'm sad. But it
But you
looks
guys can
great.
you can try it together. I'm just
We don't
kidding.
really touch. As much as we just said that we
know.
have sexual touch.
We're not
Bad
really
joke.
touchy people.
We really aren't.
Yeah.
But I would love to try it and
Mhm.
hear what those benefits are for sure.
Yeah. So an instruction that one of my Tantra teachers gave me is whatever energy you hold in your heart comes out the palms of your hands. You have energy centers in the palms of your hands. So when I put my hand on you, whatever emotion or energy I feel in my heart is going to transmit from my body to yours. And so there's a few things that were going on in that scene where he's, in her yumminess and he's got his hand over her heart center. And so how that landed for me is number one, grounding, keeping her anchored in her body and anchored in her heart. But also he was transmitting to her his pleasure from what he was doing with her. So it created like the cycle or the circuit of connection and erotic energy. So I'm going to invite you listeners, if you have the opportunity and your partner's going down on you and they really enjoy it, take their hand and place it over your heart and see if you can feel anything different. Because your partner could potentially be transmitting to you some of the pleasure they're getting from going down on you. So it's anchoring, it's transmitting, and it's a gesture of love and affection, right? If it just, when my partner puts his hand on my heart, it feels so grounding and so connective and safe. It feels safe to be vulnerable and to let go fully into my pleasure and my ecstasy. So that's what I was reading in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like a beautiful way to look at that and like understand it, because it's not a sexual thing, but it is a sexual thing. And it is a feeling of love. You're like, oh, you're touching just like a vulnerable part of me, not a very inherently sexual part of me. So this feels like a further connection.
Yeah.
Which
It feels like love, like circling back to what I was saying. It's connecting the heart and the genitals. So you have this beautiful fire building in your genitals, and then you're connecting it with the heart center. So it's integrated.
Yeah, you are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. I really love their eye contact throughout the whole season, and I don't know if this would be Tantra at all because it's not as much touching or direct contact, but was more of like a Shonda Rhimes little add-in. But like when their pinkies almost touch as she's like passing him, that feels energetic because it's like, I'm trying to get close to you and to like show you.
That's exactly what it is. And Tantra is about energy. It's about energy exchange. It's about like, you can be across the room and you can feel my energy, and we can have a sexual charge or an emotional charge or both and be feeling each other from across the room. We're not just physical bodies, we're energy bodies too. So yes, exactly. I love how she demonstrated that desire for connection and that like energetic tension.
in the small moments. Cause I think she did that a lot with characters in Scandal as well. Like you
Yes.
can see her like overlap, but I love that like very small energy gesture. Cause it's like, it
Yeah.
is, it's like right here, right
So
there.
close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the subtleties, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And that is also a tantric principles, the subtleties, because when we're dealing with the energy, it is very subtle. Energy bodies are very subtle and they're malleable. And it doesn't take a whole lot for them to react and respond,
Mhm.
unlike physical bodies, which need a lot of like manipulation often.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Are there other places on the body that placing a hand like during a sexual act could be specifically like grounding or like, add to the overall pleasure?
Absolutely. So putting the heel of the palm well, I'll just say the entire palm covering the vulva. So the whole hand covering the vulva with the palm kind of pressing into the pelvic floor is really grounding and really rooting, particularly if someone is moving through a trauma response. So, sometimes people release and heal during sexual intimacy. And so if a partner has a trauma response, and this is, male or female, putting the hand over the genitals and cupping them and holding them is really grounding and anchoring and soothing.
Okay.
Mhm.
As well as the belly. The belly as well is another place to hold that's very anchoring and nurturing and secure.
Right. The spots on my body that I've like often felt feel the best are the ones where your hand like melds perfectly to like the surface,
Mhm.
where you can like feel it, the whole thing, it just feels closed in. Like you were talking
Mhm.
about it yesterday, like the pressure of things.
Mhm.
And that's almost the same feeling where it's like I'm feeling the perfect pressure of
Yeah.
where my hand is. Tits, I don't know, anything.
Yeah. And so in regards to Tantra, have you communicated that to your partner where you like them to touch you and how you like to be touched?
I don't have one. Do you have you?
Um, Not really. When my partner and I talk a lot, but that's really never a conversation
Right.
that we've had, which is so interesting because it's like, why haven't we had that conversation? It like doesn't make sense to me. And
Right.
it's not that I've been scared to. It's like I haven't had the words to really be like, I really like just when your hand is here.
Uh-huh.
So that will be a conversation.
Yeah.
He'll listen to this podcast, so he'll be all into it. But yeah.
Sometimes throughout the day, like I find myself holding like right here. And I
Mm.
feel like that feels really good to me. And I don't know if I'm tired or if it's like a spot on my body that just feels really good. But
For those that aren't watching, her neck.
oh yeah, my neck. So it's like reaching up and around to the other side of my neck. And like it feels really good and my hand fits perfectly. So that's like one of my favorite spots.
And yeah, it sounds very comforting to you. So what I would encourage you to do is next time you're dating someone, see how receptive they are to touching you and holding you in the way that feels secure and comfortable to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
I will. I want to talk a little bit about breathing techniques and the breathing that happens in Bridgerton that we see some examples of. In the article, you talked about arousal breath.
Yeah.
I would love to just get into all of that different everything breath.
everything breath.
Yeah, so there are various different types of arousal breaths, but usually they're short, fast breaths, and they're to get the heart rate up and increase arousal. And so I noticed that like that was one of the things that the editor and writer of the article was interested in was the way that they were breathing. And so what I observed, it wasn't what they were doing wasn't necessarily tantra, but if they brought mindfulness to it, they could have made it tantra. But the breath was a response to their arousal. The breath was a response to the activation of their nervous system and this desire again for connection and intimacy. So that panting and that quick kind of breath, that's what I was referring to. But at the end, like the closing one of the closing scenes where they're like making love, they were doing a tantric breath there. Absolutely, they gave you a little hint of one. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was they were looking into each other's eyes and they were doing a breath there, and I was like, that is an arousal breath. That is a tantric breath. And it's of course they save it for like the very like 2 seconds right, before the credits or something like that. But that was an actual. So if they want, so they were, it was a demonstration of them potentially doing a tantric practice. So she was on top of him, which we call yabyam, sitting position, female superior, and they were looking into each other's eyes. They were making eye contact, so there was a lot of intimacy, and they were sharing their breath. That is a tantric practice.
Okay. Are there any other ways to share breath without being like so close, like if you don't really want to breathe into someone's mouth or have someone breathe into you, where are other places you can share your breath?
Yeah, so many of the breathing techniques that we teach are in and out through the nose. So we teach a series of tantric breathing methods. We call them tantric union breathing. And they consist of a series of different breaths. And the first one is harmonized breath. And harmonized breath, you can be sitting close, like we call yab yam, or you can be friends and you can be sitting on the couch like you are now and turn facing each other, and you can just have your knees touching, and you put one hand on each person's heart and look into each other's eyes, and then you just breathe together at the same rate and the same pace, in and out through the nose. And the wonderful thing about this is that as your respiratory rate begins to entrain, it's called entrainment to each other, your nervous systems actually synchronize, they entrain to each other. So your heartbeats actually begin to beat at the same pace and the same rhythm. Your nervous systems begin to respond to each other in a more settled way. And science has shown that your brainwave patterns actually begin to synchronize. So you synchronize in the brain, you synchronize in the heart, and you synchronize in the nervous system just by harmonizing your breath together.
Sounds like a magical power.
Yeah.
It is.
And the way you're describing it too, like if two friends were to do it, that's another point to prove that it doesn't have to be sexual. It's about connectedness and like synchronizing with your body.
Exactly. And I've taught that breathing practice to people online, like you guys are now, and we've synchronized and harmonized our nervous systems and moved into a really deep, precious place. Just like no sex, it's totally platonic relationship, just a deeper level of energetic connection through this practice.
That's so cool. Are there like particular speeds or patterns like that, can bring about different energetic states?
Absolutely, yeah. So as I was saying before, short, fast breath is going to increase arousal. Long, slow breaths are going to soothe and relax the nervous system. So there's another specific breath that we use called the ocean breath. And that it's a mouth breath, so to speak, and you make a sound and it's ah. And you just do that over and over and over again. It almost sounds like a yawn, but it's an intentional breath. And that breath specifically activates the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system and can switch someone out of a fight or flight response. So if someone's having a trauma response or is really activated, or a stress response, they can do this breath and help regulate their own nervous systems.
And how do you breathe in for that one?
Through the mouth.
Okay, so it's all through the mouth.
Is that why people sigh? Do they not understand? Like, are we not understanding that that's our body trying to regulate?
Exactly.
I get Tantra.
I've got it.
Exactly. See, it's science, right? It's just science.
It really
It's just
is.
Eastern science, but it's totally corroborated by Western science.
Right. That is so interesting. I'm loving this. They're having fun.
Yeah. I would love to get a little bit more into the arousal breath too. And so like we were talking about, like actually sharing breath, does that mean like mouth to mouth as if you are kissing and then breathing in and out that way? Like,
No, so there's a couple of different ways. You can do an arousal breath, like a fire breath in and out through the nose, which I hate, so I never do it. But what I saw them doing in Bridgerton was more like a panting again.
okay.
Right. And that's really good if you're close to each other, right? I don't want to be across the room like
a lot of energy
too much for each other. So that's really hot when you're together. And so it's a way, again, of building passion, but also kind of dispersing passion. So if your partner's a little bit if you're in a heterosexual relationship and your partner's a little bit too close to ejaculation, can help him disperse some of the energy and calm down, bring it back from the edge, shall we say.
That's such a good trick.
Cool.
Yeah, if you want to go there. So one of the things we specialize in is teaching men to separate orgasm from ejaculation and become fully multi-orgasmic.
We heard of that, and I had no idea that could be a thing, but you can do that with your breath, you're saying.
You can do it with your breath and physical movements. So working with your certain spots with the anatomy with your hands to retrain the body to separate that mechanism. of orgasm and ejaculation. So you do it with your breath, you can do it with manual methods, and you can also do it with muscular contractions and just intention. So it depends on the person, it depends on the man, how easy he will find the practices. But that's one of the things that we specialize in our school, is giving men the methods to cultivate their own ability to separate orgasm from ejaculation and become multi-orgasmic. Men can have over 11 different kinds of orgasm. Ejaculation is only one.
They shouldn't get that many, but that's cool.
We get 15.
Oh, okay. So we still win.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep. Over 15 different types of orgasms that we get.
Holy
Oh, wow.
shit. So is Tantra also, could you breathe yourself into an orgasm without physical touch?
Absolutely. Yes.
That one of the 15.
Actually, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, and there's people who specialize in that. I'm not one of them, because my orientation is more about healing and transforming trauma. I haven't ever had a student that's like, oh, I feel traumatized because I can't have an energy orgasm. That hasn't ever happened to me. So I don't spend a lot of time.
I've
Could be right here.
Exactly. I don't spend a lot of time on that one, but I have colleagues who specialize in that, and I've certainly had energy orgasms myself just from breath. I mean, at a certain point, you can just do a few short breaths and contract the pelvic floor muscles, and you can start to feel ripples and activation and bliss.
So I also want to talk about kissing, because kissing is one of my favorite things to do in the entire world. So is there a way to really like heat up kissing with Tantra without wanting it to lead to sex, just really wanting a passionate moment? And how would you do that with Tantra?
Yeah. So number one, connection. So oftentimes what we teach people to do is begin by connecting with that breath practice, that tantric union breathing. And so that's going to establish an emotional and an energetic connection. My experience of really great kissing is when my heart and soul are in it, right? So first is to get present and connected. So then I want to put my mouth all over you. And then you just dive into the kissing. In order to have it not turn into sex, is you just communicate with your partner. Hey, I just want to make out. Right. Can we make out for 10, 15, 20 minutes without it going any further? So you set that boundary in place before you engage in the session, and you just clarify and communicate about that boundary.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I guess communication makes sense.
Could you do like synchronized breathing while you're kissing? Would that
through your nose?
Yeah. Or would that be too much, like on the body?
Yeah, well, I haven't ever tried that, quite frankly. There is another breath that we do called alternate breathing that very often does lead into kissing. So with the alternate breathing, one partner will exhale through their mouth and the other partner will inhale through their nose. And then that partner will exhale through the mouth while the other partner inhales through their nose. So it creates this beautiful like infinity symbol of energetic connection that just kind of weaves back and forth. And very often after several of those breaths, kissing begins.
Okay. Got to make sure to brush your teeth with that one.
Yeah.
Yes, always, because if you want to have a hot, passionate kissing session, brushing your teeth is a good place to start.
Yeah, that's a place to start. And then with kissing too, you could probably use some of those hand placements to really enhance the experience.
Look, you're a little Tantra educator.
I guess I'm a little more in tune with that one.
You're creating your own little curriculum where you kiss and put the hand on the heart, little hand on the back, small the back, nibble on the neck a little bit. There you go. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So again, it's about connecting and being present and also responding to the cues and the signals of the other person's body, right? That happens naturally when we're connected. When we feel connected and invested in each other's pleasure, then just these wonderful things just naturally, spontaneously arise from the bottom up. That's an emphasis that I place in Tantra. It's not about this intellectual like technique and understanding like all this stuff from the intellect. It's about being in the body and allowing the body to guide you, allowing the energy flowing through the body to guide you into connection. And magic occurs. So you could be having this kissing session and your partner just, touches you on the back of the neck in the most perfect way because he's so synchronized, or he or she is so synchronized to your nervous system and so attuned to your body that they just know exactly where to touch you.
I love that. I would love that.
We're manifesting it right now.
I know. I'm gonna keep thinking about it, which I tend to do after interviews. We have a lot of questions. We're a little inexperienced with new topics and subjects. So if someone wants to try these like breathing techniques, how do you bring it up maybe to a partner and push past maybe a little bit of the awkwardness of like synchronizing your breathing, being really close,
eye contact,
looking directly at them, you know, but you're interested, but how do you move past like the kind of uncomfy part?
Yeah. So if the partner's triggered by the word Tantra, then I usually just suggest that people refer to it as intimacy and connection, because that's the end result, right? Tantra is the tool, the end result is intimacy and connection. And so that can be scary for us, right? Because we don't want to be too vulnerable, or we've been shamed, or, you know, there's a little trauma there in terms of our ability to connect authentically and openly and vulnerably. And so the way I recommend people approaching it is expressing it as a desire for connection. I want to feel more connected to you. And I was listening to this podcast, and they were talking about how eye contact and breathing together can make people feel more connected. Let's play a game. Let's try this thing and see how it feels. So that's the other aspect, that it's fun. It doesn't have to be this serious, heavy, like, oh, we're going to chop through rock together kind of thing, right? It can be playful and light and fun. And you're just playing. You're just playing with being present with each other. You're just playing sitting on each other's laps. You're just playing with putting your hand to each other's hearts and noticing what happens and having fun with it. I would say that fun is the antidote to squeamishness.
So it's okay to laugh and smile and like mess up and all of
that. Yeah. Yes, please. It's about being human.
Right.
You can fart sometimes, you know, like whatever needs to happen.
I'm a tootie gal, so that's so good to hear, because oftentimes when you hear a new skill or subject, you're scared to try it because you're scared to mess up through it. But if the whole part of it is to be human and to connect authentically, it's like, that makes sense then.
And have fun doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I've seen on like Bachelor and Bachelorette, they've done like Tantra dates, and you see them like really laughing through it and like being really uncomfortable. And then by the end, it's almost like, damn, did they forget the cameras were there? Like they're doing a really good job actually taking it seriously. And I was like, I could never do that. I could never be that close to someone and not laugh. But it's like, I don't know, if you start laughing and you just drop into like being comfortable, it does sound like it really builds a lot of connection.
Yes, exactly. And so what I found working with couples is often the laughter is just kind of like the first level. So they're getting present with each other in a way that they haven't in a really long time. And they're looking into each other's eyes and they're like, ah. And so that's just the first level. And then they drop in and they actually begin to feel each other. And then they start crying. That's usually what happens next. And then they drop in and then they start loving at a whole new level. So the laughter is just kind of like blowing off steam.
Yeah. Right. So it's like a part of it. So just don't be scared.
It's usually a part of it.
Yeah.
And then don't be scared of the tears, I guess.
And then don't be scared of the tears. Then the love making follows.
Yeah.
That's the sequence of events.
Yeah. How long would a typical like tantric session last before it would lead to sex? Like, have you observed? Maybe you haven't observed people having sex though, so I don't know.
No, I mean myself, but I usually don't watch my clients have sex.
Yeah.
So you know, tantra would be the whole container. That's the way we teach, and so we usually recommend. And you know, again, it depends on your lifestyle. It depends on how much time you can carve out. We usually recommend a minimum of an hour. And if you can, like, you know, I like to have whole Tantra days. And that doesn't mean that I'm making love and breathing and doing the methods all day, but Tantra is also about connecting with our sensuality, connecting with our environment, and just pleasure, just having fun. So on my Tantra days, I do things that I really love. We take walks, we have brunch, we just have a lovely day where the whole day we're building connection and touching and holding hands and sharing words of appreciation and just doing things that we enjoy together. And then from there, we take all of this fun, juicy connection and we bring it to the bedroom. And we do some breathing. I'm a bath queen, so we always take a bath. My partner massages my feet in the bathtub and all sorts of lovely things. And then we do some breathing, maybe some sensual massage, and it just kind of evolves. And it looks different every time, depending on what we both want. Sometimes we may spend 20 minutes breathing. Sometimes it's like, skip the breathing. I want some oral sex. So it really just depends on what's arising for both of you in the moment. And there isn't a blueprint that you have to follow. We provide blueprints that you can follow if you want to, but it's important to really be organic and to really just kind of follow the flow of the energy as it arises.
Right. That makes sense. Less rules makes more of an authentic experience, which
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so beautiful. You answered all of our questions just so beautifully and thoroughly. And like, I feel like I have more questions, but just like for myself. And so I'm so excited to dive more into this personally. And yeah, where can our listeners continue connecting with you after this episode?
Yeah, so my personal website is deviwardtantra.com, and I will be opening my one-on-one personal coaching program starting this fall. So if you do want to work one-on-one with me, I will be available again this fall. If you're interested in learning more about Tantra in general, we have lots and lots of free offerings, as well as a $20 a month membership program. So you can get a taste of Tantra, decide if you like it, and either keep playing with us or not. And you can find out more about that at authentictantra.com. And all of that is on our homepage of our website. You can just go there and see all of our free stuff and our membership and enjoy it.